Hello and welcome to the Data Career Academy podcast. This is a show dedicated to closing the information gap between data job seekers and hiring authorities about the challenging data analytics job market. My name is Albert Bellamy. I'm the host of the show, and it's my goal to highlight aspiring data analysts and their abilities in order to get them hired, to spotlight recent hires and how they successfully navigated the hiring process, as well as to find out from real industry experts what the job market looks like from the hiring side and how all of that can benefit you, the listener. So let's get into today's episode. Okay, we're here with Megan McKay. Megan is my guest today. Megan, thanks for being with us on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. So, hey, Google's talking to me. Shut up, Google. That'll add a little color to the episode. Haven't had that happen during a recording before. So something cool about Megan is I was a little bit of context here. Megan and I were preparing to do a podcast episode with Megan as a job prospect in order to get her name out there and get a job. And before we could get the episode recorded, she went and just got a job anyway. So now I am here interviewing Megan as a new hire. So Megan, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you again for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about kind of my experience on the job hunt. A bit about me. My educational background is in applied mathematics. So I have my master's degree from the University of South Carolina, and I did that intending to go into full-time teaching as my career. So I did do that. I taught undergrad math for the past 3 years, plus the 2 years through my master's program there. And I really did enjoy teaching. I loved doing it, but I quickly realized that that wasn't quite the path for me as far as sustainability in life. And so I started thinking, what else could I do outside of the classroom? Where could I take the math? And a really neat opportunity that I had was actually to develop a new math course. So I developed mathematical concepts for data analytics at USC,
Wow.
which filled a course gap needed in their brand new bachelor's degree program in data analysis. And through that, I started working on the Google Professional Data Analytics Certificate on Coursera, which I know gets some heat on it, but that was my first kind of introduction there. And I started really enjoying what I could do with the math and seeing the outcomes in the data space. And so that's what really kicked me off in looking for positions, as I wasn't sure originally if I wanted to go like the analysis route or the data science route, which we can talk a little bit more about that later, because that was something I learned through all my conversations, was helpful. But yeah, so I told my boss back in the spring that I wasn't going to be returning to school in the fall. And I spent my summer diving into projects and learning and networking and applications. And now I am a week and a day into my new job at Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina.
Nice. Cool. I love how you say the math. Where can I take the math?
The math, yes.
It's like a title. It's like the Ohio State. Love it. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely have to circle back to the analytics or data science decision because I didn't have that on my radar screen. But okay, so a week, you're still counting days. This is like a new mother, like my child is
Yes, it's
6
8
months
days
old.
old is my
Yeah.
career.
Somebody says how long you've been at this job, you're looking at a calendar. So how long were you? So you were, I don't even want to say you were unemployed. I mean, you were kind of strategically between jobs. I mean, this was always the plan. Sounds like you really had this reasoned out, and then you completed the year. So bravo for that, because I know it doesn't always happen. Um, but how long did you teach?
I taught 3 years full time.
Okay, and you said that was undergrad. Where were you teaching?
I was teaching at the University of South Carolina, so I
Wow,
taught most of the 100 level math courses there.
that's amazing. Okay, so you were out just for the summer, and then that whole thing, basically you did like an internship on yourself, like just upskilling and learning everything you could, meeting new people?
Well, I have to say I did join a boot camp. So I was part
Okay.
of Avery Smith's Data Analytics Accelerator boot
Yep.
camp.
I think
Um,
that's kind of how we met each other, through connections from that.
yes. Well, you
Yeah.
actually, one of your presentations on using LinkedIn strategically was part of my homework. And I remembered you said something about you have to send personal connection
Hmm.
messages. And I still was using my 1 month of free premium on LinkedIn. And so I
Nice.
said, sure, I'll give it a shot. I'll send you a message. And now here we are.
Yep. Absolutely.
But yeah, so to answer your question about like unemployment, technically as an instructor, I always had summers off.
Hmm.
And so I did try to be pretty strategic about like, okay, I have my summer off. We usually plan for me not working this time of year. So now I'm just going to full on into upskilling and applications. And I was really hoping to land a job by the time the semester came back this fall. Otherwise, I was going to feel a little like a fish out of water. But
Yeah.
here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I hear from teachers a lot is they don't really burn the ships. They kind of keep that in their back pocket, like, oh, I could go back to teaching if I can't find anything. So yeah, it really does become
That
kind of a
is
ticking clock.
that is the one thing about teaching is everyone's hiring teachers right
Hmm.
now. So the job market for teachers, for my friends who are nurses, they couldn't believe the number of applications I was sending out this summer
Yeah.
because it's one and done for those job paths,
Hmm.
really. And yeah, when I did leave, my boss told me I could come back if I wanted to. And so that
How
is
about it?
definitely still always an option because I did love teaching. And I'm still tutoring on the
Oh, that's
side
awesome.
just to keep up with that. But yeah.
Okay. So on to the hiring process. We'll double back to kind of your search, because I know there's some interesting aspects of that. But about the hiring process, how did you first hear of the job that you eventually got, and how did that kick off?
Referrals.
Okay.
So I started posting on LinkedIn and I had a grad school colleague reach out to me um, and say, "Are you looking for a job?" And I said, "What gave it away?" He told me that his entire feed was full of basically my posts, and that he couldn't scroll without seeing at least three things that I had.
Wow.
And anyway, so he reached out and said that his team would be hiring relatively soon. And so that was my foot in the door there.
Hmm.
So he was the one who told me about it. And then now I get to see him every day.
Nice. Yeah, so you got the referral, and then, so how many interviews did you do for this job?
So it was 2 interviews,
Okay.
plus technically a recruiter screen, but it was a short just email. Hey, does this work for you at the
Okay.
beginning?
So there's
So
never a
I
phone
sent
screen. It was just to verify you're still interested.
Correct. So I sent
Okay.
in the application on the 4th of July. Um, and I'll never forget that. It was open for a very short amount of time. And since I had
Hmm.
known this job was going to be coming available, I was like refreshing their page every day. And I
Okay.
think they posted it on the like 3rd of July and it closed on the 5th. So I was
Wow.
trying to stay on top of that. But I sent in my application. I got the recruiter email about a week later
Hmm.
that said, "Hey, this is the salary. Yes or no. Answer me in 24 hours if you want to proceed."
Hmm.
So I said, "Okay, sure. Let's continue with the application process." And then maybe 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later was the first round. Another 2 weeks later was the second round. And then it took about 2 weeks to hear back from that one. They told me I was at the end of their
Okay.
process and that I should be hearing soon and that they don't ghost people. And I wasn't
Okay.
quite sure how long to wait until I followed up again. Because, of course, I sent thank you emails after every interview, but I wasn't
Excellent.
sure how long to wait after the last interview when they told me you'll hear back soon.
Okay.
So I think I ended up waiting a week and a half before I sent an email again saying, hey, just checking in. Any updates? I'd still like to let you know I'm interested. And the recruiter called me that day, only maybe 2 hours after I sent the email saying, actually, yes, I have an offer for you.
Wow. Okay. And so, what was describe the interview to me. So you had two, both behavioral, or was there a technical aspect to them?
There was no technical aspect to them.
Okay.
For the most part. So the first interview was mainly behavioral, lots of what would you do in this situation kinds of questions, or how have you handled a colleague, a boss, etc. in the past.
Okay.
Various scenarios. And so the first one was with who's now my direct manager, and then the team member who I was going to be working with most closely. So they were the ones interviewing me in the first round. And then the second round, they brought in the next level manager in for the second interview. And they asked a question or two about specifically data related. How would you go about solving this kind of data question? Okay. But there was no now write SQL code in front of me, please, kind of interview question. And I mean, that follows from the job description was fairly relaxed in terms of what they already expected you to come in with as far as coding knowledge. So I'm trying to think, but it was mostly both of them were kind of behavioral.
Okay. Do you remember what the technical question was? Was it kind of logical thinking, like, hey, how many ping pong balls would it take to fill a 747? I've heard of that one.
No, it was something like if we wanted to be able to determine if this thing was happening, how would we go about looking at the data, and what would we do with the data in order to determine that that thing was happening?
Okay.
So
remember what your answer was?
I have to say, I don't think my answer was fantastic to that question.
Vibe felt weird.
It did feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Obviously, they still hired me.
Yeah, all's well that ends well.
But
wasn't that bad?
I definitely, I think the question was something about overbilling. How would we determine if we were overbilling? And so, I think looking back, I would ask, well, how would we define overbilling in this context? Yeah. Especially working in now the health insurance industry, there's a lot of terminology that maybe sounds normal on one glance, but then on the other hand, it's, well, how do you define that in this particular instance?
Okay.
And then also just all of the technical jargon that comes with the healthcare space. Has been an interesting experience for myself. But so I think, I made a comment about how, well, we'd have to gather the data. We have to determine where that data is. We'd have to define the answer or the question that we're looking for and look at something to compare it to is what I was trying to say was how do we know if we're doing over anything if we don't have a baseline either determined or to compare it to. And I think that's kind of where I ended it there because I wasn't sure what else to say. So
now you probably got it with that last one. I mean, you got to know what right and wrong looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that goes back to a lot of what I've been hearing about just throughout the job process was asking good questions and clear communication being really things that can be overlooked in the data professional world when we just want to get into the code. But having those, I guess they call them soft skills, are still really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of people that get insulted when they call them soft skills. They're human skills.
I was going to say, what else do you call them? Interpersonal skills?
Usually call them, interpersonal.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll say technical, analytical, interpersonal. But
gotcha.
It's potato. So you said questions. Did you ask any questions at the end? That's always a hot topic.
Oh, I did ask questions,
Good.
and I meant to write them down to remind myself what they were. One of them was, what is the most challenging part of your day-to-day job?
Okay.
Which they thought was a good question. Another question, I had two questions that they were both like, wow, those were good questions.
They
So
remarked
that
on
was
them?
one of
Okay.
them. And the second one, maybe it'll come to me later. I'll
Okay.
think
Yeah.
about it.
No worries. Yeah, for the folks at home, don't just go get the first list of questions that comes up on a Google search. Do your homework. Something specific about the job. It's the best thing to ask.
Oh, I think one question I asked maybe was, does the workload have any kind of ebb and flow or seasonal pattern to it?
I'd actually be curious about that myself. I don't know. What did they say?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I think they said it was mostly project based. And
Okay.
so there wasn't any like one season where there was like a
Hmm.
whole overload. They said a little bit kind of end of the year, they want to look at ROI stuff, but other than
Yeah.
that, it's mainly kind of steady.
Yeah, I suppose in insurance, you always think healthcare, like, probably 4th of July with people blowing their hands off, but that's like an emergency room thing. Like with insurance, I suppose it's probably pretty even Steven throughout. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
when claims would go up. Yeah, interesting question. I don't think I would have thought of
Maybe I
that.
will learn that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, soon enough. So, I mean, talk about the learning curve. It's been a week. Are you drinking from the fire hose? Like, where are you on the Dunning-Kruger curve?
Well, so I will say they have a fantastic and thorough onboarding process.
Good.
So I have just been doing a lot of onboarding trainings thus
Okay.
far.
Hopefully not
Um,
too much like mundane HR stuff.
a little bit, some
It
thrilling
happens
videos
everywhere.
about workplace safety and don't stand
Yes.
on chairs.
Ethics. Don't
Uh,
take bribes. That's a good one too.
exactly. Obviously, training on HIPAA regulations,
Hmm.
personal health information, confidentiality, that kind of thing. So most of that is what I have been doing. I had some onboarding training that was supposed to happen last week that actually got pushed to this week. So now I'm learning a bit more about the company in general and what is health insurance and what are some of these terminologies that we use, which is a relatively new training from my understanding. So I was
Okay.
telling my teammates that I'm going through that this week, and they were all very excited. They said, man, I wish that was
They
here
haven't
when
done it yet?
we
Yeah.
started. You're going to have to fill us in when you finish up with it
Oh,
because
yeah.
from what I've heard, like that is one of the largest barriers into the healthcare analyst realm is
Yes.
having that background knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's healthcare out of all the analytics fields, healthcare is the one that is most notorious for gatekeeping. And for good reason. There's nothing bad about it. It's like if you don't have experience within the field, it can be tough to break in because they really want people that understand the language right off the bat. So
Mm-hmm.
super cool that you're getting in at the ground floor. Do you feel like the referral helped you? Like, did anyone mention it?
Yeah, it was brought up a few times,
Okay.
and
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, so I think it definitely helped.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, so I did some content recently about referrals, but a lot of it is, I really always want to back it up by talking to people that have been through it. So that's interesting that they mentioned. Did they mention it during the interview or was it afterwards, like during the actual onboarding hiring process?
I don't actually think they mentioned it in the interview at all,
Okay.
but it has come up
Yeah, it
since
might be a
as
little
far
bit.
as like meeting the team. Like, well, I already know Josh.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think also in terms of how it helped out, I wasn't landing a ton of interviews, I'll be honest.
Hmm.
So just the fact that it got me in that door, I think was
Yes.
helpful because I had actually applied to this exact position 2 months prior.
Oh, really?
without the referral. So they hired, they had 2 or 3 open positions this summer, I believe.
Okay.
Not necessarily on this team, but in the department in general.
Yeah.
So I had already applied to the exact position, didn't even get the recruiter email.
Wow.
But that was also early on in the summer, before I had done a lot of my upskilling, before I had really revamped my resume, and then without the referral. So who knows which one of those things, or if it was a combination that really did the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough when, when you can't do like pure A/B experimentation. There's so many variables at play. It's like, which one of them got me over the line? Probably a combination of all of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so for the kids at home, if you're watching this trying to learn, referral gets you to cut the line. And again, there's nothing nefarious about that. It's not nepotism. People like to talk a lot of trash about that. Referral means that Megan here was a trusted associate of someone that's in the company, which means she's more of a known commodity than the stack of 1,000 other resumes that hit the recruiter's desk. So yeah, it's only natural if someone within the company vouches for you, you are going to cut the line at some level. You're either going to get the screening call right away, you're going to get the interview for sure. But either way, I mean, it can 10x, even 100x your chance of actually getting the job. You still got to get in the interview and not mess it up. Obviously, she did, but yeah. So an interesting thing about your process is how you approach networking. So obviously, you did kind of the standard, going to meet people on LinkedIn, sending them good personal messages. So hooray for that. But you kind of went above and beyond. Tell us about what your process looked like for getting out there and meeting people.
Sure. So networking was definitely a big part of the boot camp that I was part of. I had homework to post on LinkedIn, so that's what I was doing.
Avery's a big nerd.
I had a LinkedIn for a while and had posted on it every now and again, but I didn't really know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still figuring that out a little bit. But so I had heard, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm following a bunch of creators, I'm following a lot of recruiters and following the advice. And a lot of people are saying to do coffee chats. And I still did not know what that really meant. And I thought it was strange to try to message someone directly and just ask them to do a coffee chat. I had 2 people already reach out to me and ask me to do a chat, which surprised me because I thought, why do you want to talk to me? But I enjoyed those conversations and learned a lot. And so I thought I definitely should try to figure out how to pursue these more. And how could I get maybe a lot of them all at one time? And how could I get them to maybe come to me? Mm-hmm. So I was out at the barn. That was like the one time I was listening. I did feel like I was drinking from a fire hose this summer. Like everything, I was watching all these videos, listening to all these podcasts, reading.
There's a lot of information out there, yes.
And so I would try to get out to the barn and like turn off all of the devices and just like let my brain be for a minute.
We're talking a literal barn?
I'm talking a little barn with horses.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
I thought maybe that was the name of a bar or something like that.
No, the barn. Yes.
Literally going out to your barn. Okay.
Yes, that is my therapy, my
nice.
Little haven. And so I would just like try to be out in nature in silence with the animals. And I came up with this idea. I say I came up with it. I'm definitely not the first one to do it. But I thought, well, maybe I could post a Calendly link online and see if anyone would want to talk to me. Again, I had this idea of why would anyone want to talk to me, but I thought I'd give it a shot. And so I posted this link. I said I would open up 2 slots a day for 6 days. So I was like, I can handle 2 30-minute conversations in the middle of the summer, right? Yeah. I'm not currently working. I'm just networking and applying. So I gave that a shot, and it the response was amazing, actually. I mean, I got multiple bookings within the first few hours of posting that. So many people shared it, which I wasn't expecting. And I even thought I would get mostly my first connections to want to actually have a personal conversation with me. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think any of them were first connections at the time. I'm connected with them now, but that's how far it reached. And my dogs are playing in the background.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that noise. But I ended up actually having 15 conversations. So I overbooked myself. I had to open up more slots. And I had 15 in the span of about 2 weeks. And I've had 21 now. I mean, I keep having conversations with people on LinkedIn, which has just been really neat. But I had conversations with people from all over the world. I think I have 10 different countries. Is that what I have here?
Wow.
And like so many different time zones. And let's see what else. And again, just like the response was overwhelming for me. I wasn't expecting everyone to think it was such a great idea and want to have me on a podcast to talk about it and tell me to keep them posted and that they were going to do it too. I've seen so many people.
Oh, wow.
After the fact, I've actually joined a few of those. I see the post come up and I say, oh, I want to join. I want to have that conversation too. I think that was so cool. And then we've had this conversation before we got started. Someone coined it open calendar. I thought it was you. I'm not sure who it was. Somebody called it that. That wasn't my idea.
I have got to the age where I'm forgetting things that I've said, but it doesn't sound like something I would say. So I'll give random other person credit for it.
So that's where I got the hashtag open calendar. And if you click on that, you'll see other people have done it before me. Yeah. So that's where I say I don't like to take credit for it, but I did necessarily think about the idea. And it didn't lead to any jobs directly, but it led to some great conversations and definitely some great connections. Like I said, a lot of the folks I spoke with were not first connections at the beginning. Now they are. And now I make sure I engage with their content. When I see it come up, I'm communicating with them in Messenger. I mean, my messages are full all of the time. Just keeping up with people that I've now actually made real connections with.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I think, I mean, I don't know if you considered this, and I don't think we talked about this before the show, but I think that on some level, you're just opening yourself up to opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so when you just said, hey, I'll talk to anybody, let's make some professional connections. Let's chat about whatever life and jobs. And I think you just kind of opened yourself up for opportunities in general. And so, on some level, that's where one came and found you. And so, yeah, that's really cool to hear that you've inspired other people to copy that. Yeah, and I'd love to hear, I don't know if you'd be interested in tracking that. But yeah, so once upon a time, I started a LinkedIn challenge and ran it 6 times. It was a 30-day posting challenge, and it kept snowballing, and more people wanted to join it, and it wound up becoming just overwhelming amount of work for no money. So I eventually had to stop because I was just all right, this thing is just eating my life. So I really miss it because it was a lot of fun. But that we started a custom hashtag for it, and so that made it super easy. So I don't know if other people are using Open Calendar, but I imagine you can just go to your LinkedIn feed and search for new posts with hashtag Open Calendar. Yeah, you could start a revolution.
Well, that would be fun to track. Yeah. It is funny you mentioned the amount of work that went into it. I definitely thought 2 30-minute conversations a day I could handle. But I had such good conversations. Sometimes we stayed on for an hour.
Yes.
Sometimes we booked a second one for the following week, just to check in again, see how things were going. And that was actually the week that I ended up getting my first interview
Nice.
for this job. And so I landed an interview in the midst of all of these conversations. And I'm like, now I have to prep for an interview. So that was a wild week for sure.
Yeah. It's you get to the point where you really have to budget your time. And, now you're back on the 9 to 5 grind, so you've got that all blocked off. But yeah, it's the before and after. You're like, I've got time for this, I've got time for this, and you only got 24 of them in a day. So if you're blocking off 1+ for conversations, yeah, that it gets to it's a consideration. It's and I tell people that are in between jobs, like, hey, you got to budget your time. It's even though you're not working every day necessarily, unless you're driving Uber or something, there's only so many hours you can be awake, and you got to be strategic about it.
Yeah, that is one thing I struggled with over the summer was how much time to devote to applications versus upskilling versus networking.
Yeah.
I felt like I could get really pigeonholed into one thing and spend so many hours on just one of those in a day, and just trying to figure out the right distribution of time there.
Yeah. What did you settle on? I mean, what was your approach like?
So at the beginning, well, I really started applying to jobs, I think in May. Mm-hmm. I sent out a few just because over Christmas holiday and over in the spring semester, but I really didn't have that much time to devote to it on top of teaching. So I knew that I was going to dive in more in the summer. And after I started the boot camp program, I realized how much work my resume needed and how having a portfolio with some project examples was really going to be beneficial to my application process. And so I kind of stopped applying to jobs and spent really at least a month diving into projects and posting on LinkedIn and getting more confident in those things. Because again, at that time, I was applying to jobs kind of feeling like I wasn't quite qualified for them, to be honest, but I was giving it a shot. And, but so I dialed back the applications, ramped up the upskilling on kind of the front end of the summer. So that was my main focus at the beginning. And then once I had a portfolio published and I was feeling a little bit better about my skills and what I was doing and what I was capable of, then I started kind of shifting my focus more towards applications and networking. And I slowed down on the project side of things. So I wouldn't say I ever found like true equilibrium or anywhere specifically, because it was really like, this is what I'm going to focus on now. And then I'm going to shift the focus a little bit more. And if my job search had gone on much longer, I think I would have found a little bit more of a balance between a little bit of networking, a little bit of upskilling, a little bit of applications all in a day. But it really just ended up being more skills at the beginning, more applications at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was my full-time job, at least throughout the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you, I mean, if you could go back and change anything, like go teach yourself, whisper one piece of advice in your ear at the start of the project, other than, hey, start this open calendar thing earlier, what would you say? Like, was there a mistake you feel like you made?
Was there a mistake I feel like I made?
Could even just be like, hey, don't allocate quite so much time and energy to this particular endeavor.
That's a good question. I don't think there was any one thing I can point to. I learned so much over this past year. This was the first time I had really ever been on the job market. So it was a whole lot of learning experience for me on all sides of the coin there. And so I would say that maybe being more strategic with my applications at the beginning, because I definitely started, which I think a lot of people start with the whole spray and pray situation.
Yeah.
Just see if anything would stick was kind of
Yep.
my first thought.
I like to call it the volume approach.
The volume approach. Yeah, I definitely started with that and didn't get much success from it at all. I mean, I got one interview really early on and I was like thrilled with that, and then kind of radio silence afterwards. And so I would say probably just to get more strategic earlier on would maybe be my
targeted with the resumes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you now? So one more question, just line of sight curiosity. Did you focus on healthcare? Or was that because there was a referral and you were like, I could do healthcare?
It was because of the referral.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was something that I had heard again from so many people, including yourself, as far as like have to pick a niche down. And that was hard for me because I am just naturally so interested in so many things. And like, I can do anything, but I knew that wasn't helpful in the job approach. But, and I, of course, my background in higher education, I thought, well, maybe educational analytics is an option to go into, but I wasn't finding too many options there.
There's not a ton of jobs in that field. I know a lot of times, you get the teachers pivoting. It's a big market, but it is relatively difficult to find jobs in educational analytics, which is interesting because it's so data driven.
Right.
But yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, and just in helping people search myself, it can be some slim pickings sometimes.
That, and I found a lot of educational analytics jobs that wanted K through 12 experience in particular. So coming from the higher ed side was actually a disadvantage. So, but so I was kind of in the process of trying to figure out where I wanted to pick a niche. And so the healthcare just kind of happened through the referral. Yeah.
And I think if anything, that reinforces that a referral I don't want to say like cure all ills. A referral can overcome maybe some less than optimal strategy elsewhere. So having a referral meant that it wasn't all that important that you were not laser focused on the healthcare field, because you probably cut the line a little bit and got in at the interview level. And at that point, it's a matter of, tailor your resume for the job, sure. But once you're in the interview room, your resume is a little bit of an afterthought. And so if you can get that, cut the line straight into the interview room, sometimes they just say, hey, give us a copy of your resume. We need it for HR. But once you're there to tell your own story, that's the story. And the paper is, it's a check in the box at that point.
They did mention this past week, I think, that they were hoping to find someone with a bit of a healthcare background. Lucky for me, I guess they didn't. So, but they did say that, again, I think that goes back to the vocabulary that comes in the healthcare space being a barrier to entry, certainly.
Well, you're humble, so you're going under the assumption that they didn't find anyone that had this overwhelming experience. I would say it's far more likely that you knocked them over with the vibe fit, and they said, this person fits with our culture, and therefore we're willing to accept a little less domain experience, whereas, maybe the other people were, a little bit stiff, or just weren't, they didn't hit it off with them and say, hey, I really want to work with this person. So once again, referral,
I appreciate that. I'll take the compliment. Hopefully we'll go with that one. Yeah.
My experience with interviews is that's far more important at that point. If they bring you into the room, they're already considering you, and they've already kind of accepted, hey, this person doesn't have the same amount of domain experience as the rest, but they're giving you a look. So if you're in the room, you've got a chip and a chance, and it's on you to make the most of it. Clearly, you did. The referral gets you there, but the referral doesn't get you the job
Right.
most of the time. They still made you interview twice, so clearly they were considering other people. But
Right.
awesome. Well, this has been super informative. Do you have any other, if you want to drop a kind of a last nugget of information or any kind of general advice you'd like to give the hopefuls that are, treading the path behind you?
Yeah. A last bit of advice. I feel like I'm not qualified to say be patient because my stint was fairly short in the looking process compared to a lot of people that I've seen going through it. But at least just in the interview process with this one company in particular, it was at least about 2 months from like initial application to offer accepted. So that is actually something that surprised me, was just the length of turnaround for one job in particular.
Yeah.
So
And especially one where you wound up getting the job. I mean, you were waiting long enough that you felt the need to follow up, but it was
right.
a
Well,
positive outcome.
there was
2
at least
months.
2 moments. Nothing was bad in the process, but there were at least 2 moments that I thought they didn't pick me. They moved
They
on
forgot about
and
me.
they just haven't let me know yet. So I had really kind of turned down my expectation, or like lowered my expectations a bit there. So, but I do think like having that just knowledge of some companies just take longer.
Yeah.
I've seen some really exciting posts on LinkedIn about, job offer given out within 24 hours of interview. And that sounds fantastic, but also mildly unrealistic, at least in some companies that maybe have a longer like red tape process to.
You're probably seeing Stephanie Holman and all of the like cleared recruiters in my feed where it's
Yes,
like, you got a top secret clearance, you got the job. Don't even worry about it. We don't need to interview you.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, those
that
ones move
goes
quick.
in there. Right. So I think just having that knowledge as far as, and then also following up. That's something that after this experience where I emailed, hey, any information? And they called me within 2 hours. I
Wow.
talked to a friend later that day and I told her that scenario. And she said now she has no idea if this is the case for me, but she works for a company that actually will hold your job offer on their desk and wait until you have followed up with them before they extend the offer. So just to...
That makes me feel a little icky. I'm not going to lie.
A little icky, yes. And I'm not saying that was my experience, but just maybe a little extra kick to send that follow-up email because it can't hurt at least.
Yeah. That's on the encouraging side. That feels a little like playing games to me, but okay. Well, to each his own. It's a for-profit company. They can run it however they like, I suppose. Anyway. Okay, well, Megan, where can people find you? I know you have a portfolio. You got a Tableau Public. If you want to give us your, is it a tag? Like, what do people have? It's not a gamer tag, but like, how can people find you? Where would you like them to look at your work?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And on my LinkedIn, I've got my portfolio linked there. I've got my resume linked that has... I don't think my Tableau Public is linked on my
but you do
LinkedIn,
have projects posted.
It is on my resume.
Okay.
So you can get to it through a few clicks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'd say. And I've got my messages are open. I've got an email up there posted. I'm always up to having those conversations if we want to keep the open calendar thing going. I love that.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Megan, really appreciate you coming on today. I think this is going to be tremendously valuable to job seekers to hear about your journey and the recommendations that you've given. So appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I've enjoyed tonight and look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, likewise. Well, folks, with that, Semper Fidelis, and I'll talk to you later. Friends, thanks for joining me for a great show. If you'd like to hear more, I'll have the guests' contact info in the show notes below. If you'd like to get involved with Data Career Academy and find out more about what we do, please visit my website, themajordata.com. Or you can join my LinkedIn group for exclusive free content and first looks at what I'm working on. With that, Semper Fidelis, and I'll talk to you later.